Welcome to Dawn of a Story. This is more than a podcast. It's a place where we speak the truth, tell the stories that shape us, and honor the moments that made us who we are. I created the space because I believe storytelling is how we connect, how we heal, and how we remember who we are. Some stories are still being written. Some are full of laughter. Some have changed everything, but all of them matter. Whether it's my story or one of my guests, my hope is that you hear something that resonates, that reminds you that you are not alone and encourages you to tell your story too. So settle in because every story starts somewhere, and this one starts now. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Dawn of a Story. I'm your host, Dawn Pascal. I'm so very grateful you decided to spend your time with me and my guest this week, Jessica Bush. Every show, we will be exploring a new theme. This week's theme is faith, doubt, and everything in between. We will be touching on stories and events in the spiritual gray areas we don't often talk about openly. These are the deeply human, sometimes quiet, often raw moments where belief is tested, reshaped, or reborn. So let me tell you a little about my guest. Jessica Bush is an INELDA-trained death doula, spiritual companion, and sacred space holder who supports individuals and families through life's most vulnerable transitions. With a background in holistic care and intuitive guidance, she helps people explore the meaning of grief, faith, and surrender, often at the edge of life itself. Jessica brings a deep presence and a powerful reverence for the unknown, making her a gentle guide through the in-between. So without further ado, let's get started. Hi, Jessica. I'm so happy
Hi,
to
Dawn.
see you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome to the show. Very excited
Thank
to have
you.
you here.
I'm excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start with, how did you get into being a death doula? What was the experience or events that pushed you in that direction?
So, talking about the veil of the unknown, I get messages, and I got a message that this is something I have a gift for. I think that it has to do with an experience with my mom passing, an experience with one of my oldest and best friends, Gary, passing. Messages that I get from Gary, who was an ordained Methodist minister, and just experiencing my view of death, which, and I'm not sure how many people have this view, but my view is that life and death are a different side of the same coin. It's like a yin and yang, right? Everybody's born and everybody passes, and that's what life is. And that's really how I got the message to do this.
It's amazing how you're here with me today, and we are recording on the anniversary of my mom's passing, 3 years
Which is
today.
important. Very important.
Yes, sorry, very important. To have you here and talk about this topic is really amazing. And it really just came together this way. It was not planned at all.
And that's why it's meant to be.
It is. It is. I agree. So tell me about your friend Gary. How instrumental has he been in bringing you here?
I think very instrumental. Gary, and I'm writing a whole book on Gary, so that's pending. I'm actually right in the middle of really important parts of it because things are sort of coming together and gaps are filling from things that I wasn't sure about. Because I've been talking to people that have been touched by him in our lifetime, but he was my friend from kindergarten. We grew up together. We were what I call adventure partners through high school, crazy adventure partners. He went on to college at New Paltz and was a drug and alcohol counselor, and I went on and was an artist. I'm an artist, which I still am.
Mm-hmm.
And we just did crazy things together and shared everything together. And around about 1990, he had a horrible accident at the Jersey Shore and was caught in a riptide and was thrown onto the beach and became a complete quadriplegic. And then 2 days later, he had a brainstem stroke and never spoke again. So we communicated with him through a lucite letterboard originally that had letters on it. So and he, by the way, was a Methodist minister, and this is a whole part of my story, was his message to the world, which is very significant, and his messages to me, which it was write my story, write my story, write my story. So it's in the process of years, but it's been formulating more now with the help of some of my wonderful friends. And I think in his passing, he lived about 6 years,
Wow.
and he knew he was going to pass because he was completely atrophied from here down. And I think he could feel that his lungs were giving out and that he wasn't going to be able to support breathing anymore. Which, happens. I mean, he was completely atrophied, but he had his brain and he had his everything.
Right.
He was completely him, every other way. And he had his spirit and he had his soul and he had his gift, which was helping other people. That's really what his gift was. So in that, and also in my mother's passing, we had a woman, Carol, who took care of her. Carol and I have subsequently become really good friends. And she has the gift of sitting with people, holding space for people, and just allowing them to be okay, passing on. And I saw that, and just it all kind of came together for me that this is something I think I have a gift for, that I can do, especially in combination with my creativity, and to me the importance of being creative. And what I loved about part of the training was doing end-of-life projects with people, which I think could be very, very impactful for the person who's passing. Anyway, that's a whole other part of the conversation which we could have, which was, what an end-of-life project could be or could look like for the dying person.
Well, so then let's get there. What does that look like? I would imagine that it's very different, obviously, for the family
Everybody,
versus the individual and individual circumstances, family circumstances.
completely
So,
different for everybody.
what is that
One of
like?
the big things that I've learned is that self-care is almost the number one. You have to have self-care, and you have to understand how important it is as the doula to have self-care, because you are literally holding space and being an open vessel of no judgment, complete emotional connection for that person. So self-care is important, but also, what do they want to leave their loved ones? Is there something that's really meaningful to them that maybe they haven't shared with anyone, that they maybe we can do a project? Here's an example. So when we were in the training, we did role play. I was the doula, and a partner was the dying person. Then we switched. I was the dying person and the other person was the doula. And real life stuff came out, because this is real. You have to be in touch with what you want when you pass to be a doula. You really do. And I was talking to the woman I was partnering with, and I said, do you have anything that is really important to you that you maybe want to leave for your loved ones? She said, well, I have my mom's, this was so beautiful to me, I have my mom's scarf collection. And I said, oh, you know what we could do with that? Because this is how I creatively, this is how I think. Why don't we take all her scarves and we can sew them together sew them, because I knew she was a sewer and I am a sewer. Let's sew them and make a coverlet for you so that you can keep it over you and she can be with you all the time. She was like, oh my goodness, we could do that? I said, absolutely. That would be such a special thing. And that was so important and impactful for her.
Wow.
Then I had another woman who said she had her dad's ties. And I said, let's make something with the ties. With this, if we sew the ties together, it almost makes like something that she could wrap around her shoulders. And those sorts of things are so meaningful to the person. And that's what's important, is what can be meaningful to a person who's laying there and knows they may only have a week, 2 weeks. Well, a week they're not really speaking, but
Yeah.
have a month or a couple months, or they don't even know how much longer they have, and they can work on something creative that they can then leave and pass on.
The visual of it is just beautiful. And knowing that you could physically wrap yourself in something like that coverlet, or knowing that it was something that touched them, is really, it's just really so moving, and it's so personal for me as
But that's
well.
what it's so personal, and other people may not have that.
Right,
Some people may have photos,
right,
that maybe they haven't gone through, and let's get the photos out and let's go through, and maybe the names of people that your family or your kids don't know. Let's
right,
go through and talk about it,
right,
and
right.
share together. And it's holding space for an end of life for someone. Another example for something creative could be anything that's special to them, whether it's photos or whether it's mementos, that they want to just gather and have around them.
Right. Or
Something special.
music or a song,
Music,
right? Right.
music. We could sing together, you know, all of these creative type things that people don't always, that you don't think about, when somebody is passing, that is very, very meaningful and touches their heart, so that
Well,
they
and
can pass on gracefully.
right, absolutely. And it ties the two, I don't want to say worlds, right? But it ties the two pieces of the veil together, because I do believe that there's a very thin
100%.
veil between us
100%.
here, so that in the physical world, versus I know my parents are my guardian angels. I carry stuff that belongs to them with me every single day. And when I feel extra, maybe vulnerable, or if I feel like I need a little bit more guidance, I will wear my mother's pin that she always wore on a particular jacket, or I'll wear my father's wedding band. It was the band that he was first married with my mom, which then became too small for him to wear, right? But it fits me.
But it's the
And
original one.
right, it's the original one. And I'll wear that if I feel like I need to have that extra boost and guidance, and feeling that they're with me. I mean, I know they're
Exactly.
with me, but I can feel them with me because it's a physical thing.
And some people can, just do feel through objects.
Right.
Some people get messages through butterflies or cardinals or whatever,
Birds.
pennies, right? But the other thing I wanted to share was about Gary. When he was at the final stage, in the nursing home that he had come amazingly full circle. And because of, in some sense, in some people, the incredible help and support that he had. And also his church had done a fundraiser, and thank goodness was able to get him at the time, which was the early 90s, this incredible technology, which was a voice synthesizing computer that sat on a mechanical wheelchair. So he learned to communicate through his chin like this. Long story short, he married my husband and I. He wrote the sermon, of course. Who else would except for him? And his nurse brought him down to the wedding, and the voice synthesizing did part of the wedding, part of the sermon, and my brother read the other part. But probably in 1995, 96, he started making cards with a man that came in, who I just recently found, a man who came in most Saturdays and sat with him and made cards that he sent out to people with messages on them. He started to write a book, which I haven't found yet. I'm working on that. Who may have the text of this book? He did some incredible things. And growing up, he was not a creative person. He always wanted to be a creative person, but I was kind of his creative person, was our other friend, Herminio. But he started doing creative things for himself before he passed, which was amazing.
Well, it almost seems like how I'm hearing it is that his physical limitation allowed his creativity to come out, right?
In a sense.
In a
But he
sense,
pushed beyond it.
right?
You have to push beyond. He pushed beyond every limitation that you could possibly imagine.
Wow.
But that's his soul and his spirit.
Wow.
I always say who he is,
Right.
because he's very still alive for me,
Right.
because I get messages from him.
I imagine that this kind of work shifts you in a dramatic way. What really is it like walking alongside people at the end of life, and how has that shaped the way you see faith or even the absence of it?
I look at it as a gift to spend that type of time with someone. Not just for a gift for me, but a gift for them. You're giving of yourself, your time, your energy, your everything to
Hmm.
them, to make the end of their life more fulfilling, and hopefully to allow the family to let them pass on, you know,
Right.
or at least for them to be okay, not feeling guilty or
Hmm.
not feeling angry or not feeling resentment, any of the negative feelings, to try to push past that. But for me, it's more an energy and a spiritual thing. To me, I wasn't raised, or I'm not a religious person. I'm a highly spiritual person. And to me, like I said, it's just a different side of the same coin that everybody is going to go through, and people should talk about it more. It's almost like breaking the mental health stigma. It's
Right.
breaking the death stigma. But it brings up a lot of things for family members and for people in the family.
It
And
does.
that's the hard part, I think.
No, it absolutely is. I mean, my sister and I experienced my father's death in November of 2020, and that was like the needle went off the record. It was completely unexpected. He turned 88, and we brought him into the emergency room that evening, and 6 weeks later he was gone. It was literally like something just turned on its head, and
Yeah.
then just craziness happened from there. Our mom had suffered 2 strokes. We were caring for her. It was just a lot to happen all at once. But,
Yeah.
one thing that I could say is that, my sister and I were always on the same page with how we were going
My
to
brother
care for
too.
our
And that,
mom.
that adds a huge amount of, thank goodness.
Yes, it was. It was totally huge. And we talked about it, right? We made sure that we knew that there were things that I could do versus things that she could do. And there were things that to support her and help her that we would do together. And we were always on the same page. So I was very grateful that we went through that together,
Yep.
in a supportive way. But again, we still were reeling from my dad passing, and then quickly having to shift to care for mom. And then mom's passing 18 months later from him was she was in hospice for a day. She was in hospice for a day. And Jessica, how's this for a sign? The day before she passed, the fire alarm went off in the house. 5:30 a.m. I run downstairs. I check around. I'm looking around like, okay, what is going on? Obviously, no smoke, no fire, thank God. No
Yeah.
protocol. I didn't check the door if it was warm. I just ran out of the bed, ran downstairs, shut
Yeah.
the alarm off, came back upstairs, and my sister was up, and we looked at each other and we were like, oh, oh, wow, okay, it's got to be mommy, right?
Yeah.
Because my mom was in this beautiful assisted living community at the time, in the memory care side of it. Like I said, she was on hospice for one day in
Wow.
the community. And we got there very quickly right after that and called everybody. We called our entire family, and we had everybody call her, FaceTime, come see her, etc. And we knew that that was a sign
You
that our
knew that was
dad
the
said,
sign.
hey, let's go, girls, get up because I'm coming to get your mom. And she passed the next morning on the 27th.
Yep.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
thank God that you saw that as a sign, right?
right.
Because then that's it, being sensitive to recognize things like that also, I think, was kind of her last gift to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Really?
yes, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
And our aunt just passed this past Easter, and that was my mom's oldest sister.
Sister.
And for the entire week before she passed, she came to me 3 times in my dreams. And then that entire week outside of the kitchen window, there was a male and a female cardinal. And I was like, okay, mom and
Yep.
dad, I know that you're, going to get Aunt Rosalie and make her transition an easy one.
That's also what a doula does. I had a birth doula, and that's sort of what helped me to understand what is a doula. It's and then when I learned about a death doula, or an end of life doula, to give support to the person, just so much hold space for the person that is passing, so that it can be graceful and hopefully stress-free, and hopefully they are surrounded by what they want.
Right. Right.
Because you don't always, family, you don't always, you're putting your own preconceptions into it, and it's not always what they want.
Right.
So here's another thing I learned that was really impactful to me was, you think in your mind as someone who's soothing another person or there for another person, you think they want to be touched, but they don't always want to be touched. So this is really interesting. You really need to ask. Don't assume, because by assuming, you're putting your own need or thought into it, where that is made completely not. So here's an example that also happened, which in our training, which was very impactful for me. I was working with the woman, as a role play, and she was the dying person and I was the doula. And we were taught that you don't necessarily, first you need to ask, can I hold your hand? You don't always want to just hold their hand. This I thought was really important. You want to put your hand sort of under their hand, so you're supporting like this. And then I realized that I was holding her that way, but I was rubbing her hand, and she said, "Can you please stop doing that? It really annoys me." I'm so glad she said that, because it made me realize I'm doing that as a self-soothing for myself.
For you, right.
Even though it was her hand, I was going like this and rubbing her, but it was something that I was doing to soothe myself, not for her. And I realized you have got to remove, it's completely removing almost every part of yourself to be there and to be open for what the other person wants.
Wow.
That was very impactful for me. I'm so glad that happened, that she was open and on it. But that's what the person is there for you.
Right.
To and some people don't want to be touched.
Right. Wow.
Which you have to realize that's not you.
Right.
They're not it's because that's who they whatever
are.
their past, whatever their trauma, whatever their whatevers, they don't want to be touched.
Wow.
And that's okay.
Right. Are there moments when you feel like something greater is at work, even if you can't name it or explain it? Yeah.
I think because of all the energy work and all the stuff I've been through and learned, always. I feel it all the time. And I think it's just because I've elevated myself and I'm open to
receiving.
And I've had many mediums, and I've had many psychic people, and I've worked on my own intuitive psychic abilities. And yes, it's always.
So you were, would we say, destined or fated to do this kind of work?
I don't think it's fate. I think, well, my mother was very connected to a lot of things, but she had so much trauma as a child. I think that she shared a certain amount with me, but I think it was a part of her life that she just wanted to move on with once she met my dad and we were born. But I look at it as kind of a legacy for myself.
Wow. Obviously, I've heard of a birth doula. And I've heard of a death doula, but I never really knew exactly. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're thinking about it, you're bringing a being into the world and you're helping a being leave the world, right?
Leave this world, the physical world. the
Right.
physical world.
Wow. Unbelievable. What have your experiences taught you about holding space for
Oh,
others?
you have to put yourself and your preconceptions and your judgment and your whatever completely away.
Mhm.
There's no room for your judgment and your whatever, and completely hold space and listen. I think in our training they called it full active listening. You
Right.
have to just be openly listening to them and what they want. And there were some really beautiful videos out there people that are passing. Actually, one woman, very very powerful. And I've tried to find the video. It's not. You can find a trailer for it, but
Mhm.
a woman who was dying of cancer was also a filmographer. She filmed her entire years of the progression of her cancer, her
Wow.
treatments, how her partner responded to her in the beginning, how that changed, all the way through to the very end on her deathbed. And she passed on film, super powerful, with
Wow.
everyone around her that she wanted. She wanted her tribe of, happened to be women, and her son surrounding her around her bed. And she put it out there, every single thing she wanted, and that's how she passed.
Wow. Wow.
It was an example of having your death be exactly what you want
Right. Right.
and almost celebrating it. I mean, even though it was, hard and powerful
Mhm.
and upsetting to a certain extent, and loss and grief, it was what she wanted.
Well, and it's back to what you mentioned earlier, which is the stigma around not talking about death, right? Not planning for it. And it doesn't have to be in a morbid way. It's just,
Right.
hey, this is the way that I would like to transition and leave.
And I
Uh,
think people should write that down so your
Sure.
family member knows. I know we're doing that. And, who do you want around you? Some people don't want anyone. Some people, I know, like me and the woman on the film, some people want all their core loved ones
Mhm.
there. But they see that may also, on the flip side of that, be a trigger. There are some people that can't handle that,
Mhm. Right.
which is fine. That's their thing.
That's
That's
their
their
thing.
stuff,
Right.
right?
Right.
And not to be angry about that, just to understand that that's where they're at in their life at their time,
Right. And
you know,
everybody processes grief differently,
differently.
right? It's the leading up to it. So my dad passing in 6 weeks, processing that grief versus watching my mom deteriorate for
Right.
two and a
Very
half,
different.
3 years. Right. Really very different. Right. So are you sometimes part of someone's plan for their transition, or are you brought in more from the family to help that loved
Brought
one,
in from the
the
family.
family?
Yeah. And it's not, everyone says, oh, is it hospice? No. Hospice is really nursing care.
Right, right,
Hospice is care. This is not that. This is holding space for the person. So that's when I would say a doula is brought in. I'm in the process of preparing to do some volunteering with hospice, just so that I think that the doula needs to be kind of there with hospice. And the other thing, the difference is when you're a hospice nurse, say, you have a limited time that you can spend with the family
hmm
and you're gone. So to have that relationship, doula doesn't have to be gone, doesn't have a time frame.
right, right.
I think the family has to understand the benefits of it, which I think that is what we need to get out and talk about.
hmm
Understanding what a death doula is. So that's one of my purposes in the next couple of years, is to get out in the community and share is what is a death doula.
Have you ever been met with family members that were not open to it?
Not yet in my process, but yes, from what I have learned, there are a lot of family members don't understand.
Right.
But they're going through their own thing.
Sure, sure.
So that's why I think it's important to talk about what is it so people understand it more.
Right.
It's really for the person. It's for the death. It's for the person who's dying, but it also can be for the family as well. If the family is open to being positive about it,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Right. Are you usually in hospitals? Are you in personal
No,
homes?
I want in private homes.
You are in homes. Okay.
That's what I would like to. I'm just in the beginning process of this. So that's what I want my practice to be, and with people in the home if the person is passing in the home. It could be in the hospital. I mean, a person may want a doula to come in,
Mm-hmm.
but in I think that's just in my vision what what I would prefer.
Do you bring any of your art into your?
That's a great. I could if the person was into it. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, especially if we're doing creative end of life projects and things like that. Yeah, I think that is where I see that my niche.
Right. Right. Well, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners about your new beautiful, beautiful art
Oh,
website?
thank you. Thank you. Well, I've always done art. I am an artist. My father was a prolific artist, as well as an apprentice to Frank Lloyd Wright, which is incredible. We
Amazing.
grew up in a Frank Lloyd Wright style home that he designed and built north of New York City. And very ahead of my parents, very ahead of our time, like very ahead of their time. So it was a very creative, energy, experiential type of lifestyle for in the early 60s and 60s, which was very rare. So I'm fortunate. Um, and I was always supported going to art school. From when I could crawl, I was creating things. I went to art school. When I got out of art school, I started selling art in the city, and it just grew into a career and evolved for almost 25, 26 years. So I started, long story short, I have another business. I started getting messages from my dad.
Wow.
And do your art. Like Gary, write the book, do your art. This is who you are. Get back into your creative. This is you. And did. And I started, this was a couple years ago now. And I don't ask me how these things come, but they do. I got a message of what I was going to call my business. And because my art really is beyond the eye, beyond what the eye can see
Mm-hmm.
is really what it is. So beyond the art, and I'm selling some fine art prints from my originals, and that's one of my goals for my
That,
next 30 years.
that's beautiful. Well, that's beautiful, but I so see it as being one, Jessica. I really
It
do.
yes, and that's where I think I see my my gift of what I can also share with people,
Mm-hmm.
not people that are passing on, as to explore that creative, let that creative self at their final, if they have something they want to do in their final days, whatever, months, let's do it.
Right. Right.
Let's do it.
Absolutely. Or how they inspire you to create a piece
That's
as
a
well from
whole,
that experience.
that is a whole nother avenue that yes, almost
Right.
like an end of life soul painting
Right. Right. Wow. How beautiful would
or an
that
end of
be?
life energy painting. Because I have recently I've been painting like energy. Yeah.
Wow.
Which could
Wow.
be a very cool, and it could be my gift to the family, or it could
Right.
be my gift. Yeah.
Right. Right.
You're 100% right, Dawn.
That's amazing. I can't wait for the book.
Which one?
Anyone.
Someone said you need to write about your family and your growing up because that's a whole nother book after the Gary book.
Well, it's back to the reason why I started this podcast. It's the story, right? It's the story that we were born into, whether or not you believe that you chose that point in time to be born, to the parents that you were born with, and live the life and the story and the ups and the downs, and it brings you to where you are today.
100%. Like, I have an example of this, which also just goes to show you where I'm at. So my daughter, when she was little, I have an only child daughter, and I had her when I was 40. My husband was 46. We were older. We always had our career. We never thought we were going to, let alone have a child. But she's amazing. And she was little, and she said, Mom, she remembers being up in her hot air balloon, choosing us before she was born, choosing us as parents.
Wow.
And she has that memory. Now, she has some serious gifts. I mean, she can see spirit and all that kind of stuff. Yes, I know that there's a reason we had her, and there's a reason she has us.
I honestly can't even believe that you just said that, because one, I got the chills, and two, I don't, obviously not many people know this about me, but I'll share this with you. So when I was 5, I will never forget, it was my 5th birthday. My parents bought me the Tony DeFranco and DeFranco family album. So shout out to Tony DeFranco. Loved him when I was 5.
Wow.
I turned to my parents and I said, I was 17 once, and now I'm here with you, and I'm 5. And my mom looked at my dad, and my dad looked at my mom, and
Wow.
they didn't balk. They didn't make a face. They didn't say, oh, you're kidding. Or they just said, okay,
Okay.
okay. And we sort of just went on from there, and that was it. And they brought it up at other times, in other conversations, and it wasn't ever anything that was poo-pooed. That was the story
That's
that
the
I
way
was
it
telling
was.
them. That's the way that it was. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I wonder what being 17, yeah.
With the
And it may have,
significance.
I'm just this intuitively, it may
Uh-huh.
have a connection to Tony DeFranco. Who the heck knows?
Who the heck knows? Who the heck knows? That's exactly right. Yeah. Wow. I never thought about it that way,
Well,
but
that's the first thing I thought.
wow. 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 Okay.
You may get messages about that.
Oh,
Because once you start, I have found that in this research and working I'm doing on the Gary book and reconnecting with people that we hung out with in high school and having them think and talk about the adventures that we all used to have, all these things are starting with the people I'm speaking to. They're starting to get these memories and these things that come in that trigger them, because once you start talking about something,
right.
and I'm talking to them about the book and adventures that I've had, and my friend Elena reminded me of an adventure that we had as a senior in high school. I was with her. Gary was there. I completely don't have the memory. And in her triggering the memory in her mind, I slightly remember now that time of what we did. And it was such an amazing thing. But I just didn't have the memory.
Right.
But she did.
Wow.
So
Wow.
you don't, and that triggers other things.
Sure.
So the minute you said those two in conjunction with each other, the Tony DeFranco and your 17 thing, there's some sort of connection.
Well, interesting. I honestly, in all of these, decades, right? Since never even made that correlation. So
That's why we're talking about it.
So thank you for that. Oh, Jessica, you're awesome. So before we go, I ask the same question to every guest. So I'm going to ask you. So because I believe the stories that we leave behind say so much about how we've showed up here in this world. So my question is this: what's one story, big or small, that you hope people remember you for?
My message that I'm going to share with the world through my Gary book, the feelings that people get through having my art hanging on their walls, the impact that I've had working with people through opening up their creative self. That's who I am.
Wow. Oh, you're such a light, Jessica. You really are.
Thank you.
And
Thank
that
you,
was
Dawn.
oh, thank you. Thank you. And that's such a beautiful note to end on. I'm so grateful and thankful that you shared your story today and that you were part of this podcast. And
And thank you for giving me the space to do it.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
It's great what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
And I think it's part of what you are leaving, your legacy of what you need to do for yourself and for other people.
That's my goal.
Yeah.
That's my new goal. So thank you for saying
Yeah.
that
I,
out
I
loud.
see that.
You said that out loud, so that's a good
That's
thing.
it.
Yes, the
100%.
universe heard us. Thank you. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode of Dawn of a Story. If you heard something today that moved you, made you laugh, or made you think, share it with someone you love. Please like and subscribe to the show. And if you're feeling brave, I'd love to hear your story by commenting below. It helps other story lovers find us too. So until next time, keep listening, keep sharing, and keep telling your story. Thanks, everyone. Bye, Jessica. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.